All right, you guys, let's get rolling here. Sunday night. I always get so excited and more excited than ever, of course. There's so much to come this week. Like, how are we even going to sleep tonight? I don't know. But good stuff in the works for sure, for sure. Tune in Tuesday morning. We got 11 a.m. Central. More to come on that for sure. But it will all be rolled out then. So you guys tonight, we haven't heard from Gretchen in a while. This is so exciting and so much fun. She is our guest speaker, even though I don't know do we say guest speaker when you're on her team? I don't know. But she is so good on speaking on this topic of courage. And I know you guys are all going to just gain so much inspiration, so much knowledge, so much wisdom from her tonight. She has been a nurse now for 10 years. I don't think I realized that, like 10 years. And I know that you got into entrepreneurship really, really early on, but I don't think a lot of other people know that. Like, you've always really had this passion for entrepreneurship back to when she was 20 years old. And even at 20, she was turning, was tuned into the benefits really of passive income, and really like how beneficial that could be at such a young age, and to start that young, which is so incredible to me. And so 5 years ago, she started Isogenics, and she's going to share a little bit more of that with you guys. But she really just has an incredible heart of service and is a foster mom and an outdoor lover. I love that you've been getting outside so much. It's so fun to see all of that. So welcome. Let me unmute. There we go.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm so excited to chat with you guys tonight about courage. It's one of the coolest topics. So what I want you to do is type in the chat if there's something that you wish you had more courage with. Maybe it's talking with somebody, having a hard conversation with an estranged family member. Maybe it's a hard conversation with a boss or a spouse, or maybe it's talking about Isogenics. But put something in the chat that you are working on to have more courage about, just so I can kind of get a pulse for where we are tonight when it comes to the topic of courage. Yes, being bolder. I love that. Yes. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, perfect. Standing up for myself. Oh my gosh. Yes, Tia. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for being so transparent with us. Showing the compensation plan right away. I love it. Talking about Isogenics, asking questions, caring what people think. These are amazing. You can keep putting things in the chat, because the reason I wanted to have you put that in the chat is to show you guys everybody has something that they are working towards with having courage. So this isn't something that it's like, oh, I'm courageous, check. It's always going to be something that there's something more that we could be more courageous about. Our whole lives, it's going to be this way. So the more we can just feel okay with the fact of these feelings and the dealing of fear and, kind of that whole process, the better. Because if we know we're going to have to deal with it our whole lives, doesn't it make it feel better to know, like, oh, I'm just going to learn how to deal with this, versus like, I'm just going to check it off a box. So I kind of liken it to exercise, right? Like, we don't just be like, I exercised on Tuesday, I'm done for life. No, you have to like exercise every day. So, courage is really similar. We have to like do it every single day. So before we can talk about courage, though, we have to talk about what's the opposite of courage, and that's fear. And that's kind of what all of you are talking about in the chat right now, is fear. That's really what comes up with all of those topics. And I want to tell you a story about fear that I have dealt with recently. So in 2017, I had my first $4,000 month in Isogenics. And I was like, psh, my graph is going up. Everything's looking good. Every month I'm making more money than the last month. I'm going to quit my job. And I had like heard the stories of everybody around me that was the goal, was to like quit your job. And so I was like, okay, well, that's the goal. That's what everyone's telling me is the goal. So I'm going to quit my job. Now, there are a lot of people who come to Isogenics who want freedom from a really bad job. And I was one of them. I was really burnt out in the hospital. I felt overwhelmed daily. I mean, Allison and Amanda were there with me, and I'm like, I gotta make more money so I can leave my job. Well, when I got to the point where I was making the amount of money that our household would need for me to leave my job, I quit my job. And about a month after quitting my job, I spiraled into depression. And this isn't something that I like shared publicly on my wall. I mean, I would talk about it with people. I don't even know if I've really talked with many of you about this, but I went into this like state where I wasn't really thriving working at home. And we had taken on a foster kiddo that was going to need adoption, and they wanted us to adopt him. And Mike and I weren't on the same page about that. There were some things going on with my mom and her health in Arizona. Anyways, there was just like enough things, enough stressors in my life that it didn't actually feel really good to be home all day in the winter in my house, not at a job, like dealing with all these things, and this foster kid who had a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that I had to take care of him about that I was new to. And I wasn't well, you guys, like I wasn't well. And so here I had achieved the dream of like the quit your job moment, and I was miserable. And so, oh, I love it. Sarah, I love you. And so what ended up happening is I had like a moment where I had to be like, am I courageous enough to do what's right for me, even if it's not what's going to be right on social media, or it's not going to, how's it going to look if the girl who succeeded in isogenics and could quit her job went and got another job? Is she not succeeding now? Are things going bad? Like all of the voices of the outside world. I had to have the courage to be like, you know what? I need to do what's right for me. And so I hope that like me telling you guys that story, and we'll come back to that story at the end, but I hope that shows you that you're going to have moments, even when you're at the top and you like get the thing you thought was the dream, you're still going to have moments where you're going to need to have courage to do what's right for you, even if it's different than what is right for other people. So we're going to talk about 3 things that really we have to do when we're courageous. So if you have a pen and paper, you might want to write some of these down. So the first thing is that every single thing in life that is amazing is outside of our comfort zone. And all a comfort zone really is fear, because our brains are designed to keep us safe, right? That's how they're designed, literally, like run from the bear, save your life. That's like why our adrenal system was made. So our brain doesn't love it when we're like out doing new things. It's like, no way, it's like a lot cozier just being in small and not doing anything major. So what I think about when it comes to being courageous is really the opposite of that is fear. And fear really represents comfort zone, right? And so when I was in a situation where I wasn't in my comfort zone, because I was actually not that happy being home, like freed from my job in my situation, I was outside of my comfort zone at that point. And I had to figure out like, what am I going to do about this? Now, type something in the chat that you feel like is a comfort zone that is holding you back a little bit. Like, this is really easy. For some of you, it's going to be your job. It's going to be my job is easy and I can just keep doing my job. It's not that bad, because talking to people is scary, but that's what's going to free me. For some of you, that is that, right? And for some of you, it's going to be my comfort zone is just like loving on my team. I can love on my team all day, but reaching out to new people, like your team is already good. Like they know how to use the products, they need a rank advance, but a lot of times that's on them to do that. So yes. Okay. Your job, your routine, talking about the business. Okay. There's a lot of people that resonate with like your job being safe, right? In comfort zone. Okay. Comfort zone is working on me, coaching my team, motivating my people. I love that. These are so good. Okay. I'm just kind of looking at them. So what I want to tell you is 9 times out of 10, when we're not growing in our business, it has nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with our job. It has nothing to do with, we don't know how to do it. It has nothing to do with our personality. Like I'm too quiet or I'm too shy. Most of the time it has to do with a comfort zone that's rooted in the fact that we're fearful and we're not stepping into the courage. Yeah. Knowing I'm financially secure even without isogenics. Yeah. Okay. Tia, that's so good. That is what I will tell you, Tia. If you can, in your heart, think about the people who are going to be totally transformed by Isagenix, right? Like their health is transformed, their marriage is transformed, everything about their body is transformed, and imagining what you're going to do for those people and have it be an act of service for them. That's like one of the best things you can do outside of the financial, outcome or why. It's just it in service to help the world. Okay, I love that. Okay, so the second thing about courage and about fear is you have to understand the root of these words, right? So courage is actually, if you look up like the root of the word courage, it actually means to be strong. So a lot of times we think like courage as in, oh, I'm going to do something that scares me and I'm going to do it afraid. But actually what courage really means is being a strong person. And that's literally the root of the word. And so if you think about if your body is strong, if your mind is strong, if your emotions are strong, if your relationship is strong, all of that is what makes courage able to happen. That's what makes us able to take the action that's courageous, right? So the people who are really succeeding in Isagenix, like the Slobans and the people in the top 50, right? Or the top 100, we look at them and we're like, oh gosh, they're so courageous. Well, you guys, all they did was use more strength and build up their strength. So they had more conversations, which builds their strength of like talking to people. They had more rejection, which builds the strength of dealing with that. A lot of times people who are in the top 100 are in really good health, right? So they're taking care of their health. You can just see that they're well, that they have good well-being. So that's a strength. So think about like, if you want more courage, like what areas of your life need more strength? Is it your relationships? Because if you have nobody to talk to about Isagenix, if you have no friendships, it's really hard to talk about Isagenix, right? Like, who am I going to actually talk to? You have to have a strength of a network around you. You have to have strength of friends. You have to actually be using the products. Like, how many of you, and I can speak for myself here too, like you've had a moment where maybe you're slipping on the products. Maybe you gain some weight and you feel gross, or you're just not cleansing anymore. So it's really hard to talk about cleansing because you haven't cleansed in 5 months, So when that happens, it's harder to really talk about the products, right? Because you don't have strength in the products. They're not even like working in your life. So we have to have strength in all of these areas. So literally, that's what the meaning of courage is in the Bible and in the Hebrew language and in the Greek language. Okay, so this is awesome. The nurse in me loves this one. The other word for courage, and Brene Brown talks about this a lot, is cor is actually the Latin word for heart, right? So if you think about like the coronary artery, or we talk about the core a lot. So the word core in courage is actually the word heart. And so courage is really nothing more than your heart speaking. And this is why I don't think anyone needs a script in Isagenix, right? Like they give us scripts because they're nice to have and they kind of set a precedence for you about what you could say. But I actually think if you use the scripts without heart, you sound like a robot. And most people are not going to say yes to you, right? But the most I've ever succeeded in Isagenix in getting people started is when I didn't use a script. I literally just spoke from the core, from my heart. And I was like, hey, Abby, this happened last week, my neighbor. Hey, Abby, okay, girl, I did a live about how I had gained weight and what that experience was like and all the things. And she sent me a message and she's like, oh my gosh, I was crying when I watched your live. I just moved into this neighborhood a year ago. I hardly know anybody here. I mean, we're getting to know each other, but it's not like these are my best friends, right? And she's like, I saw your live and I feel so anxious all the time. And I'm homeschooling these kids and I'm trying to work from home and I'm gaining weight and I don't eat and I just feel like crap. And I was like, I have a solution. I can help you. She didn't respond. Hey, Abby, just checking in on you. Didn't respond. Like 4 or 5 follow-ups later, she tells me, I was thinking after I had sent her the packs, right? So we had chatted a little and she was ready to look at the packs. I sent her a graphic with the packs on it. And initially she told me price was not an objection for her. I don't care. She lives in one of the biggest houses in the neighborhood. That doesn't mean she has a lot of money. That means she could spend a lot of money. Who knows what that means? Hopefully none of you know her. Anyway, so since I told you her name. Anyways, okay, so she's amazing. But she told me price wasn't an object. And then she sent me a message and she's like, I'm just feeling like I should wait till January. How many of you have heard that? I just need to wait till January, right? Okay, because the holidays are coming. So here come the objections, right? And you guys, I didn't follow the script. I didn't go look at Laura Stevens's How to Handle Objections Perfectly. I sent Abby a message and I said, do I need to reread you what you sent me like 2 weeks ago about how you're feeling? You just got done telling me how gross you're feeling. Are you really going to wait 2 months to feel better? That's my heart. Like, that's totally my personality, would be to just say, girl, don't do that. And I said, if it's money, let's just find what's right for you. And she's like, it's not money. All of those things, I'm so overwhelmed. She couldn't even look at all of the products. So overwhelmed her to look at the products. So I was like, okay, all we're doing is a shake and ionics. That's all I want you to do. And she was like, okay, awesome. And she enrolled right away. But if I hadn't listened to my heart about how I knew Abby needed this, and I knew that there was a way, and when she gave me a no of I just want to wait till January, and I was like, okay, then I could never change her life, right? And she sends me a message 2 days later, because we know Isogenics is so fast. She's like, oh my gosh, chocolate mint is so good. I had breakfast for the first time in 6 months. I never have breakfast because I never have time. So this is when we're sharing our heart, when we have the courage to just share our heart, the scripts don't matter. None of it matters. You just have to be bold enough to say to someone when they tell you no, listen, you told me that you are so anxious. You told me all these things. I'm your friend. I'm not going to let you live like that. So who is willing to be that courageous? Yes? Okay, good. I want to hear that. I love that. Okay, that's so good. So just remember, courage, coronary. Everyone knows the word coronary, right? Coronary artery. We've all heard that. Even if you're not in healthcare, you've heard of the coronary artery. And just remember that means courage, okay? Okay, the third thing is you will always be on one side of courage. You're either going to be discouraged or you're going to be encouraged. Both of those words have the word courage in them, you guys. Think about that for a second, right? It's just a different prefix, I didn't know I was an English teacher. It's either discouraged or it's encouraged. And so you get to choose what side of courage you're on, but you have to pick a side. You have to decide if you're going to be encouraged and you're going to be uplifted and you're going to stay in that zone, or you have to decide, you know what? No, I'm just going to live in the discouraged side. You get to pick what side of the fence you're on for that. Now, if you're on the discouraged side, right, it might look like this. You might be comparing your income or your rank to other people in the group. It might trigger you when someone rank advances. Oh, they hit manager. I've been trying to hit manager forever. It might look like you see a millionaire who is taking a bath on a Tuesday and you're trying to homeschool your kids and do your job at the same time. And you're like, she gets to just take a bath? I'm freaking over here struggling, It might look like you see somebody else enroll 3 years after you and they go straight to the top. And you're like, what the heck? I've been around longer than you. I know the comp plan better than you, right? That's what it looks like when you're discouraged. And when that happens, I will tell you, get off social media, okay? Just get off looking at other people's lives and literally start using the Penny app to just send messages. You don't need to be scrolling to get on Penny. Penny can connect you right to their DM, right to their page. So when you start to feel that discouragement of comparison, you have to stop yourself in your tracks and be like, you know what, you guys, I'm so extreme. I will uninstall Instagram and Facebook off my phone. I'm actually in that right now, but it's not for that reason. It's for a different reason. But I'm taking a social detox. Your business is not going to crumble because you uninstall Instagram. Okay. If your business is totally dependent on you scrolling Instagram, we need to teach you how to look for contacts in your phone, figure out how to get your Facebook friend list. You can even look at your DMs on Instagram from a laptop. You don't even need to have the app on your phone. Okay. Another thing that discouragement might look like is rejection, right? So you ask someone if they want Isogenics, they say no, or they ghost you, or they look at your message and they don't respond. And you're like, oh, I can't believe they wouldn't respond. Okay. We don't know what's going on with other people. That is not our job, is to care about that. Honestly, you guys, I cared about that probably for like the first 5 months. And granted, my personality is such that I typically don't get bothered by that stuff. So I know some of us are like, who are more blue, maybe that's like white, I don't know, maybe the other like personalities, that's a harder thing to swallow. But at some point, just get so much rejection that you're like, okay, well, that happened. Like, we have to just get used to rejection. I had a gal message me the other day on my team. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so discouraged. Everyone is telling me no. And I said, well, how many people have you talked to? 4. I was like, girl, sometimes I get 4 no's by like 7 a.m. You need to keep going. So like sometimes with the rejection, you just got to get thicker skin and be like, okay, this is just part of the journey. Like, you will get 90 times more no's than yeses. That's statistically sales. My husband laughs. He's been in sales his whole life, like 25 years. And he laughs when people on Isogenics get like all hurt about rejection. Because he's like, I've been getting rejected for like 20 years, including from you, so it's like, we have to just like get over the rejection. Okay. All right. The third thing is, when you're discouraged, is when you're thinking about Isogenics all day, but you're not actually taking any action. How many of you guys have done that? You've literally thought about your business, you're checking Isopulse, you're like looking in the Facebook groups, but you haven't talked to one person. It's all been in your head, like imaginary conversations in your head. I have done this, you guys. There are days where I go to bed and I'm like, oh, I actually thought, I felt like exhausted by Isogenics, right? I'm like laying in bed and I'm like, oh gosh, my business. And Mike will be like, well, who did you talk to today? I'm like, no one. He's like, so you thought about it all day long? Like, no wonder you're exhausted. You just literally thought about it all day long, but you didn't do anything, So if that's your reason for discouragement, that's easy. Just take some action. Just like send a couple messages. And then the last thing is lack of money. And this kind of goes along with the feeling of watching people rank advance. But when you're in like a really tough financial situation, and you're like relying on Isogenics as your sole income, sometimes that can feel discouraging if it's like not bringing in the money. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you're in that case, you need to go get a job with Isogenics. Like, my husband and I have been in some tough financial situations. And at one point he was like driving Uber, and we were like, should you get another job delivering pizzas? I was selling stuff on Facebook and I was working like 3 jobs. Okay. And we realized, like, at that point, like, we were never going to be above a job. We were never going to be above doing whatever we had to do to make it work. And this is years ago. This is probably 6 years ago. But I really feel like, because we showed up and we said like, hey, we're willing to do whatever we have to do. If that means I have to deliver groceries, if that means I have to do whatever, I am willing to do whatever I have to do while I grow my business. Because what that will do is like energetically change you when you're actually talking about Isogenics. You won't be so like desperate, because you'll just be like, oh, this is one of the things I do, instead of being like, if this person doesn't buy a value pack, I can't pay my grocery bill. Like, we have to be in a space where we're willing to do what we have to do financially to like sustain our lives while we grow our business. Okay, now if you're on the encouraged side, obviously we know what that looks like. Energetic, things feel easy. You feel light, it's easy to enroll people, it's fun, so we want to stay on that side of the courage spectrum. So who's going to agree to like stay on the side of the encouraged spectrum? Okay. And if you see someone who's discouraged, pull them over, right? With some of those things like, hey, what's discouraging you? If they're like telling you, well, I'm comparing myself, or these people are rank advancing and I'm not, then you can say like, okay, get off social media. Stop looking at them. Like, get to work. Like, let's get to work. Who can you reach out to? And I'll hold you accountable if you did it tomorrow. Okay. So let me tell you the end of the story, right? So at the beginning, I talked about me in 2017, like just feeling really, really down, right? About being home and not having a job and just being really unhappy and all the things. So it was at that point that I was like, you know what? One thing I've learned in Isogenics, and I am making some money now, so I don't have to take like the first job that comes to me. But one thing I've learned is that I actually have a lot of worth, and I have a lot of value, and all the UIAs I've been to have like instilled in me that I am like capable and I'm worthy and strong. what would happen if I just put out there the kind of job that I wanted to have while I build my isogenics business, and I didn't compromise on it, right? Like I just made this like list of like, this is what it's going to look like. So I did it. I made a list, and on that list was, I get to work from anywhere in the world, because that's one thing I like about isogenics, right? It's like the ability to work from anywhere. So on my list was, I want a nursing job that I can work from anywhere in the world. Okay, well, those didn't really exist as much before COVID. Now, like every job is that way, right? But back then, that there wasn't a lot of those jobs. Like they wanted you physically in the hospital. But I was like, I don't care. That's on my list. I want to make more money than I've ever made in my whole life. And I want to have a cool boss. Like I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want anybody like looking over my work or being like, I saw you posted at 10 a.m. Are you doing your business instead of working? Like, I don't want any of that, right? Like I want them to know that I have integrity and I work hard, and you don't need to be like checking my Facebook. I want to be able to walk in there and say, by the way, I have a business. Is that cool? And they'll be like, sure. Well, you guys, this year I got offered a position that pays me the most I've ever made. I get to work from Arizona. Because of this job, I'm able to buy a second home in Arizona, which we're doing next year. And we're going to like live part-time in Arizona and part-time in Minnesota. I have the coolest team and the coolest boss, right? All the things that were on my list. And I get to do that while I grow my isogenics business. So sometimes having the courage to be like, I have to speak up, right? And so for some of you, it's I have to speak up about isogenics. But some of you, it's like, I need to speak up for what's my truth, right? Like my truth isn't what everyone else's truth is. Like I wasn't super happy when it was just me and isogenics. I function way better when I can do like a little bit of like trauma and a little bit of this, and I can like have my hands in medicine because I love it. And I can do isogenics, and I can like do other things I love in entrepreneurship. But if I hadn't like had the courage to speak up about that, I wouldn't have this life right now, right? So I'm going to leave you with a quote by Dale Carnegie. And he says, inaction breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit home and think about it. Go and get busy. I just love that. Dale Carnegie always giving us the truth. So that's what I have for you. Does anybody have any like questions or thoughts about courage that they just want to talk about quick? It's okay if you don't. You guys are so sweet to me. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll hand it back to you, Amanda.
Oh yeah, thank you. If anyone has a question though, just unmute yourself. We have a couple more minutes too that we can totally use up. So thank you so much. Amazing. So happy for you. So happy for you. And I love watching the chat this whole time. People are just loving this. And you can tell people are, grabbing little bits and pieces of it that is just so neat. So, all right. Well, we will let you guys go. Happy Sunday. Excited for next week. So much to come.
There's a question in the chat.
You want to unmute yourself?
Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Thanks, guys. Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much. I absolutely love this. I wanted to ask you a question about how you got up the courage to do a live video about gaining weight while building an isogenics business, because it hits very close to home for me. I started isogenics back in 2017, and I probably got down to my healthiest weight of all time. And not just that, but I mean, my best functioning, fully, whole well-being was through the roof. And then, life happened, and I had another baby, and we had a huge move across the country because things kind of fell apart for us financially where we were. And there's just so many things that snowballed and hit. I gained a ton of weight, got pregnant with another baby, gained a ton more weight. Now, thankfully, I'm back, in the community, back on isogenics. I've been able to lose like 40 pounds so far, but I still have, a ways to go. And I want to be bold and share that with people, but at the same time, I'm worried that they're going to be like, oh, well, it obviously doesn't work because look what happened to her, kind of that. So I'm just wondering, like, what did you touch on and what kind of reactions did you get from people?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to just link the live right here for you guys so you can go and watch it. But here's what we forget in Isogenics. We think because we have an Isogenics account, it means we are now the biggest health expert, dietitian, nurse, doctor, expert, trainer in the world. You're not. You're just a person with an Isogenics account who is a human, and you're referring people to a company. Like nowhere in Isogenics does it say that you have to have a certain body or a certain this or that to like send someone a link. And so what I think that we sometimes forget is like, we're just humans, right? Like we're humans who are our weight's going to go up and down, especially you had 2 pregnancies, girl, give yourself some grace. Okay. Like you had 2 babies or 2 pregnancies in that time frame. Like, so your body went through things, and it is so freeing to get on your live and be like, hey, guess what, guys, this is the journey I'm on. And I tell this to every single person who I enroll. If I were to knock, I heard this at an event. I don't know who said it, so maybe put it in the chat so I can start crediting them. But at an event once, someone talked about how if someone knocked on your door and said, do you want to run a marathon with me tomorrow? You would say no, right? Maybe. Is there anybody who would actually be able to do that? That'd be crazy, but okay. But if someone knocked on your door tomorrow and said, do you want to train for a marathon with me? I want to do this marathon in 4 months. And I'm just going to start with like the couch to 5K. And then I'm going to do the next program and get to a point where we could run a marathon. That sounds like more realistic, right? Like you'd want to do that. So think about Isogenics as that. Like people want to just go on the journey with you. They don't necessarily want you to be the expert who's like helping them get to the journey. And in fact, even though I'm a nurse, I tried in the beginning of my journey with Isogenics, like I took on that role, like the nurse that was going to help everyone. And it was like exhausting, you guys, because every day people be like, oh my gosh, they would like dump all their emotional needs onto me because they were like, you're the nurse. And I get every question about diarrhea imaginable, right? Oh, now my poop is green with some yellow flecks. And blah. I'm like, I don't need to know what color your poop is or like how often you're pooping. Like, please do not tell me. So you're going to be you're going to have so much more fun. Sorry, that was like way too much TMI. But that actually happened to me. And people would be texting me from the whole Be Brave team. Hey, can you do a 3-way call with me? This girl, she's throwing up. I'm like, no, she needs to call her doctor. Like, I cannot be her person. So if you can just see that you're just a person with an account referring other people to this company, and you're that's why my neighbor wanted to enroll with me, because she saw I was relatable, right? If I would have been like, I'm perfect, and I was running by her house and I'm like, hey girl, let's go running, and she's in there miserable, she would have never said yes. So just like give yourself freedom and grace to just be human. Sorry about my story. Got a little real
so much. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? That was such a good response. And I just like Allison said too, people definitely relate to the beginning of our stories and beginning of our journeys. And I think while that's sometimes really hard for us to share, especially from the beginning, it's definitely the most powerful. It's such a good reminder to continue to share, the full length of our story, because people can relate to the beginning, right? So, all right, you guys.
Right.
Thank you so much. Seriously, so grateful for you. And thanks for hopping on tonight, everyone. Have a good night.